What is DYSUJO? We are the home for culture-defining brands, both ours and yours. 10 Over Surf Shop is more than a retail hub and event space. We're fully stocked with expert advice and shared stories. Stories in Longboarder and Wavelength Magazine, Europe's longest-running surf mag, connecting brands to ocean enthusiasts globally. But when you need to make an impact 24 times a second, Cassette can turn the lens on your brand and reframe how your audience sees you. Reaching the real world at the UK Surf and Skate Expo to over 10,000 people. That's real-world engagement. And when digital visibility is what you need, Marwick Marketing is your brand's ticket to that front page feeling. Because you don't have to surf or skate to embrace the flow state of marketing. These are our brands. Let's talk about yours. DYSUJO, the home for culture-defining brands.
Hi there. How are y'all doing? Wow, right? My name is Ozzy Osman. I wrote a book on skateboarding called Back in the Day, and my friend Lucia Griggi, we met years ago in California. She came to town and was taking skate photos and surf photos. I met her at a surf get-together in San Clemente, if I remember correctly, and we've become friends ever since. We've traveled to Mexico, surf trips and everything. Fascinating thing, first woman to swim pipe. She broke through a kind of a male-dominated surf media with her photos. As you can obviously see, creative, driven, talented. She's broken down many barriers that other women only dream of sometimes, and she did it by the skin of her teeth sometimes. Sometimes she didn't make it. I want to introduce to you tonight, Lucia Griggi. Hello.
Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming today. We only have like 45 minutes, so we're going to kind of get through this, and I'm so stoked that Ozzy's here because he's a good friend, and yeah, he's writing a book with me, so I just thought today it would be really nice to give you a little taste of that and a little taste of some little different places.
What we thought we'd do is, there's a few pivotal things that we wrote about for the book, and I'm gonna do a little piece of each and just read it, show you photos from that particular section, and then we're gonna ask her some questions about how it was, what it was like, and kind of give you a little inside look on that. So I'm going to start with the intro. Give me 1 second, please. The horizon line was orange and red gash. Daytime moved to another part of the world. The ocean held the mysteries of my fears, my livelihood, and remained a grim, impassive presence. At times it was a comfort. In other moments it remained my foe. My life had become the ocean, all of my problems and all of my solutions. People keep asking me when I'm going to do a book on my work, but I don't want to write something about myself. I think inspiration is found in action. Courageousness is in spirit. The sand slid over my shoes and spilled out again as I moved back up the beach. It was murky and moving. Night wrapped me in a warm embrace. A fire pit glowed nearby, and I saw figures standing around. Music and laughter reached me, and then it moved away again. Like me on the outside, it was where I often found myself, be it in the crowd, be it in the water. I was always outside. The thought of the book project idea, and I wondered at the road I traveled. For every downturn in my life, the camera lens always led me on to something new. As I trudged along the silent streets and listened to the waves lapping at the stones, I pondered an uncertain future, the unknown. Joseph Campbell wrote, "Nothing is exciting when you know the outcome." I smiled into the sea and drank it in. This particular photo was when Lucia won the National Geographic Prize for photography, and it was right when I met her. So she was coming off a low point in her life, which I'm going to read about, was in Cloudbreak in Fiji. And in this particular time, the swell kicked up down there like never before. It was monstrous. And she lost all of her camera gear. She almost drowned. A bunch of people almost drowned with her. It was ugly. But on the receiving end of that, she comes back to California where I met her, and she had no camera gear. She had the future wasn't there. It was no future. She had lost everything. And this came out of the blue, the National Geographic Prize for Photography. And so this is when I met her at Fiji. So I'm going to just do a small excerpt from that part so you understand. And then we're going to show you some photos from Cloudbreak, okay? And then ask you questions. Follow Cloudbreak Fiji. The surf contest had been going well, but then a change came over the water. The atmosphere darkened and the ocean just turned up the power. It simply switched on. In an hour, it didn't look like Cloudbreak anymore. The big wave surfers were already in the channel and the contest just stopped. Everyone was just holding on. The waves just got too big. Conditions deteriorated to primitive. The ocean was everything and we found ourselves as nothing. There was so much going on so fast. No one was prepared. I had switched up my gear to a longer lens and I was shooting dry without a water housing, which was risky. My Pelican case was strapped to the ski and Cloudbreak was so big there was a ton of water moving around. Kalar Alexander got held down and had to be rescued. My ski driver, hey, hold on, I gotta go get him. She tucked the camera into her jacket and held on to him. The ski was heavy and I went inside to get Kalar and it flipped. My life jacket inflated and I spotted a building height white water rolling towards me. It was an avalanche of misery. I couldn't get under it. My Pelican case floated away with $20,000 of gear. The finality of the whole thing wrapped me up. I knew I was done. Then the driver and Kalar flipped the ski over and came back for me. I felt hands grabbing me and dragging me through the water. I was snatched up before the next God hammer came to drown me. Distraught, I was on the back of the ski clinging on. Kalar was so happy, he didn't even seem to be affected. He was like, hey, where are you from? Isn't this great? He was just having a blast. I couldn't believe it. I almost drowned and he almost drowned. The mindset of the surfers. I thought to myself, all I can do is marvel that I'm still alive. Kalar. So, Lucia, first of all, what's it like to drown?
What's it like to come back?
Tell us. So you knew it was jacked up. You knew it was big. All the big wave surfers were following the swell. What did you expect? Was it anything like you expected at all? Tell us about the swell and how it kicked up.
Yeah, so we were there on the contest. So it was like in 2012, and it was just like, yeah, pretty crazy. Like all the big wave guys flew in, and it was like a super quick turnaround. So everyone was like borrowing boards. Like it was a frenzy, but like, you know, in the evening, it just kind of like, it started looking like chopes, like it just jacked up. So it was, you know, it just went mental, as you can see. This is a photo from the channel. But, you know, there's boats around. I was on the Red Bull ski, so I had a ski to sort of go around. And I guess when that happened, you know, I was on a safety ski, so technically I probably shouldn't have been on it. And
But you couldn't get on a boat.
I couldn't get on the boat.
She couldn't get on a boat because the boys wouldn't let her on a boat. Right? And then they got mad when she got all the good shots.
Well, I got on the ski because they wouldn't let me on the boat, but then I got in their shots, so they weren't too happy then. But yeah, so the ski went in for Kalar, and unfortunately we were just super heavy because I had my Pelican case on the back of the raft, and we flipped. So I just lost everything. So some really lucky person is going to get a nice Pelican case somewhere off the Pacific.
He probably doesn't even know what he has. He's got a Pelican case full of great cannon gear. He's like,
with like 20 to 30 grand's worth of equipment. And yeah, I mean, you know, obviously it was what it was. I lost pretty much everything, but this was such an epic day. Like, I mean, I managed to recover one card, so I managed to get a few things, but also after that, after being on the skier in the water, I ended up going on the boats. And a couple of these shots sort of coming up, you know, what I really like to do, and I think it's really important, and a lot of my work is not just focusing on the action. There's loads of great photographers that can shoot action, and, you know, it's amazing. But I think the behind the scenes and the photojournalistic style, and this next shot of Nathan, this was in the journal, Surfer's Journal, and it was just like they were literally bouncing in the waves, and they would come out, and then they would just like light up a cigarette or, you know, talk about their dinner or pizza after just being held down on like a 30-foot face.
cigarettes and pizza.
Yeah.
That's what they were talking about after drowning, just about. It's crazy, right?
And we both know the Fletchers because, right, Christian skate, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so Nathan. And then here, like the boys, like, you know, it's just like really nice to kind of just document around a scene. So it's something that I've always really enjoyed to do.
You're not going to answer what it's like to be drowning?
No. I wasn't drowning. It wasn't that bad.
I don't know.
I mean, it was caught on live webcast. That was probably the worst part about it.
If that's water coming at me, that's going to look like I'm drowning. In my head, I'm going to be drowning.
I think the positive thing is the tide was pretty high. So at cloud break, if it's high and you're stuck on the reef and you flipped, you can sort of come around the back and get out pretty easily. So it wasn't like too bad. But at the same time, I think it was just, I had a vest on. So sometimes, obviously in waves like that, I'll have a vest. So if I, do go in, then it will float me. But I think having a vest on and being inside of the white water is probably one of the worst things because you just get tumbled.
Tumbelina. Excellent, thank you. After she related all this to me, I took her to Canon to get gear because she didn't have any. She was just like, I don't have a camera, So we went to Canon, she reloaded, all her stuff was insured, she got it, and she calls me and says, I'm going to Mavericks. There's a contest in Mavericks now. Mavericks is brutal. Just looking at it, it's a gloomy place. So she goes to Mavericks. So one of the interesting things about Mavericks is she's on her way there with the rescue crew on the skis and stuff from San Diego, just going up to cover the contest, right? The cameras, she's riding with the rescue crew, no real obligation to anyone, she's just gonna go shoot it. And CBS News, which is like the BBC here, so it's a big deal in America, they call her up and she's in the back of the car getting a ride, all crammed in with shit, and they're like, hey, can you cover Mavericks for us? They had seen the National Geographic shot. So they were like, surf photographer. They were like, that person, get her. So she had never covered anything for television or anything, a surf contest. So she's in the back of the car and we're like, yeah, of course I will. So she gets to Mavericks and it's just, anyway, I'll read a little section and we'll show you some Mavericks, all right? Yeah? Okay. You're doing great.
Yeah.
No one was in the water right now. She sipped coffee and watched the sky and the sea. She took a few photographs of the waves at Mavericks. Turning her eyes toward land, there was little to see. Dirty brown trails meandering across naked hillsides and bluffs around Half Moon Bay. Olive-colored scrub brush rock. Nothing cuts the icy wind of winter, straight to the bone. She looks toward the sea and it roars a greeting. She notices people far off in the distance watching the sea as well. Cars had begun to clutter the roadsides. People watching the surf. Surfboards ubiquitous everywhere. The arrival, waiting for the inevitable. The ocean was about to visit some panic on the coastline, and they were there like the last brave people on earth. A cold day, steel gray skies, a pounding, brutal winter sea. The next dawn, she found herself cutting behind a 20-foot wave on the back of the ski. The thought of being cold forcibly removed from her mind as soon as she hit the water before dawn. Somehow, the ocean feels colder in the dark. It's indescribable. The wetsuit helped. After all her years in cold water, it was always a half hour of misery before she could ignore the bone-chilling cold. The waves at Mavericks had started to grow, and surfers were in the water. The dark god called, and they answered. What would they offer up? Serious faces were everywhere, and the ocean growled, I will show you how to be afraid. Purpose, future on hold. She wondered at the wonder of it all as surfers dropped into the deep face 40 feet up. The jet ski driver cut around the inside, and she took photographs straight down the throat of it. The cold was long gone, and she marveled at the huge green monster, sharp teeth jutting out. They disappeared into froth, here then gone. Millions of tons of water moved around them, a living thing, and the water always wins. Mavericks. Interesting place. When I went there and I stood and looked at it, I wasn't going anywhere near that. It just looks bad. It has that look to it. The water's gloomy, it's dark, it's absolutely uninviting. So when you go to Mavericks, so that time you go up, CBS wants you to do the thing, you were winging it completely, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and tell us about how this day went down.
Yeah, so I was, so we were just sitting and obviously we knew a swell was coming through, so it would either be going to Maui, maybe to Jules or to Mavericks, depending on obviously where everyone was gonna go. And yeah, it was on in Mav, so we get up early, we get in the car, I jump in with the safety crew and we rally up, and I was just going up there to shoot. And then, I got a call from CBS, and they were like, hey, do you want to like present it on the news? And I was like, okay. So,
of course I will.
Why not? And then it was weird, because then at the same time, I got like Time magazine on the phone saying, oh, we've got a hurricane coming. Do you want to go to Hawaii to shoot flooded houses or something? I don't know. And I was like, I think I'll take Mavs, thanks.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool that I had the opportunity, and I felt like obviously really grateful that two really profound or some, very highbrow organizations had come to me. Anyway, got to Mavs. I was like, said to the boys, like, okay, what am I going to say? So they were like helping me, and like I totally winged the presenting side and was sort of, just introducing it to the news, and it was all pretty crazy. But then we ended up getting on the skis, which was good. And the day before, we kind of like, before the swell properly kicked in, I like had a chance to actually be on the ski and sort of drive it through Elephant Rock and sort of get a feel for being out there. And then, the next day we woke up, we get up super early, we put our wetsuits in the shower, we get hot water, make ourselves warm, and then we get on out there before it gets light, really. And then, this is one of the swells we were up there for, and it was pretty cool. I mean, I don't like being in the water there at all.
Yeah, it's inhospitable. It's interesting, though, how thick and nasty the wave looks. It doesn't look pleasant, A lot of surfing, and you see it's warm, it looks like a big barrel, and it looks like it's a bunch of fun. But this doesn't look fun. It doesn't look fun at all.
No, but a lot of the time, like, people are on the boats or we're on the skis, and then if they need to do a changeover, they'll drop us in the water. But it was, it's out there. I mean, it's your neck of the woods too, right, Ozzy?
Yeah, for sure. We, Brian Logan of Logan Earthski, skateboarding in the 70s, Logan Earthski was the big brand, and Tony Alva, obviously, kind of the godfather of pool skating and style, surf skating. We decided at some point in 2013 we were going to go to Scorpion Bay down in Baja, and we all decided to go together. This is a small excerpt from Scorpion Bay. We're going to kind of burn through this a little bit, but very interesting trip because I am not a surfer. I'm a skateboarder. I had gone out and tried to surf, but on this trip I was actually going to learn to surf. and Tony was like, "You're going to learn on a shortboard," so everybody's trying to give me a longboard to surf on, and it took me a while to pick it up. I can promise you that. But anyway, I want to read something from Scorpion Bay. We're going to look at it. It's really interesting. The ocean shimmered and moved into all of us. Its time, its rhythm. Those first few days were silver and green, all life color. The ocean ruled our thoughts. It had a mandate all its own. We had an RV and 2 tents and a fire pit. There were several small encampments and RVs on the black bluffs nearby, sun-split rocks from the barren shore, and the ocean licked eagerly at them. We surfed several times a day and became friends with the varied people that made the long journey to this remote place. School teachers, attorneys, surf shapers, skateboarders, antique dealers. The backgrounds and origins were astonishing. It didn't really matter who they were, where someone was from, or exactly what they did. In the water, we were all the same. We took the long road south to get to the place. We took our burdens and we left them behind. There's a long toll road that was installed in North Baja, and it makes the drive easier, but is easier better? Sometimes we need to travel a difficult road to find out exactly what we're made of. In this land of isolation and unfinished business, perhaps we must move further away from those nearest to us to become closer to ourselves. It's discovery, the good in all things. Local Baja legend Mama Espinosa said, "Good roads bring all people, and bad roads bring good people." I think she was on to something. Man, look at those silver zippers. So, driving down, it's a long drive. It's a day to Guerrero Negro, and then you stay inside your hotel confines because it can be dangerous. And then you drive across salt flats for another full day to get there. So it's slow going. You let the air out of your tires. There's sand. You can get stuck. If you get stuck there in the salt flats, you got to walk to a village, maybe an hour or two away, to find someone that has a tractor to drag you out. So it was one of those journeys. So, Lucia, tell us about that trip. First of all, do you feel, had you ever, I don't think you had ever been there, but did you feel like it was a good trip? Did it reset you because of all that was going on in your life at that time? Because you were going through quite a bit of internal, get real with us. Real.
I was going to say, I think you kept me busy with your energy for the whole 2 weeks.
Yeah, tell me what it was like. Tell us what it was like to shoot down there and be with, Brian Logan, Tony Alva in Baja at a place like that. It's pretty amazing for a photographer.
Yeah, so I think I had met Brian, right? And then Brian was like, oh, hey, Luch, do you want to come down to Mexico with us? And yeah, Tony's coming down and we'll just go down. And then Ozzy came as well. And yeah, it's I don't know for anyone that's been to Scorpion Bay, it's down in Baja, Mexico, but it's an amazing wave. It just reels and reels. And, we put some of Tony's boards in, and I think I guess the journey is the craziest thing, right, Ozzy? It's just insane. You cross the border in San Diego down through Tijuana, and you sort of go into the depths of sort of, Baja, and you go through these towns. What was the town called? The Negro town?
Guerrero Negro, yeah.
Yeah, Guerrero Negro. And it was literally just cartel, skeletons on the side of the road. It was just odd. And then Tony, me, and Ozzy were in a motel room, and just kind of Tony had his guitar and was jamming out.
Yeah.
And then when you leave the town, the North Road is it going in, which is shorter than coming around the south and coming into the point, because it's super desolate. You just got to chance it. So if you slow down, then the car just starts sinking, and then there's nothing really around. So I was worried because you were driving.
Well, it wasn't really like that. It's they were in front of us, and we were caravanning, and so we were going in sand, and we had this big, heavy Ford Explorer, Jeffrey. And I'm driving. She calls it Jeffrey.
It was a good one.
With a G.
It was a $2,500 car.
So Jeffrey. So we're driving, and I'm like, fucking go, go, go. And they were going 10 miles an hour, 9 miles an hour, and I was starting to slow down.
Yeah, it was not
And
good.
I was like, oh my God. And I couldn't call him. There's no reception. And I was just getting so, you know how you're driving with a car that breaks down? I was like, oh, the whole way. And in the salt flats of Mexico, I was pretty stressed out. Because if we got stuck, we would have been doomed. They would have just came along and get out of the car,
Yeah, but, once you get down there, it's pretty amazing, right? And
beautiful.
You were starting to surf, because Ozzy's an amazing skater, by the way. He, just goes and, pretty much gets arrested all the time, cleans out pools, and then the boys go and, reap the benefits.
Yes.
And his other part-time job is, irritating me and, I'm joking.
Energizer Bunny.
Energizer Bunny, yeah. And then, it was just really cool being down there with Tony, and there wasn't many people down there, and we would just eat really good food, surf really good waves, and it's just a really, really good wave. And yeah, we were just relaxing and having fun, really.
And she surfed.
That's my one and only surf shot, yeah. Which was by you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the times when I wasn't drowning in the waves that were 4 feet high.
And that's the salt flats, isn't it? Well, that's actually not. That's before.
That's driving out, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a really, I think the thing with this is it's, from being in Fiji where it's just, high impact and it's just go, 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 it's a bit of a boys' club, right?
Yeah.
And then we go to Mavs, which is definitely a bit more refined. I feel like people take it quite seriously there, and it's a whole different beast. It's super sharky, it's cold, it's, you don't really mess around. And then just sort of coming into that surfing and then coming into this whole, different world of surf travel, surf photography, where maybe the phrase is coming, but to get places which are hard, it's kind of good. To get something that's good, it takes work, it takes time, and you have to work hard for good things in life. They don't just come easily. So I feel like with Mexico, it's almost like representation of that. Of to get there, there's a reason why it's an empty wave. There's a reason why we
Beautiful.
Bond and we have fun, because it's hard. It's hard to get there, and then we reap the rewards of the waves.
It's true. And they always say the right thing and the hard thing are often what? The same thing. The right thing and the hard thing are the same thing. You're awesome. And I did stand up on a wave. I want you to know that.
You did. You stood up a few times.
I did. And it's really funny because the bluffs are beside it, and everybody had seen me basically drowning for a couple days on a shortboard. And they were all like, yeah! I could hear them yelling for me. So it was pretty good.
And then Tony gave away your board.
And then, we're not going to get into that. So one of the interesting things is At this particular time, she was on an expedition ship, and I didn't hear a lot from her, and she started sending me some pictures that really, I like gloom, and I like that. I can sit in my mud puddle. I always say I'm happy with my depression. I can sit in gloom, and I like it. I like dark shit that's gloomy. I like to go down that rabbit hole. And she started sending me these pictures of the polar ice and stuff, and it moves me. I like that stuff. I live in Los Angeles. The sun's out since 1912. I mean, it's, I like that stuff. So in this particular one, there's 2 sections that we put together in the interest of time, and I'll stop talking and start reading. This is about her on the ice ship, and she's been going through a lot of stuff in her life. And I don't want to, it's up to her to tell you that, but I can tell you what she was thinking because I interviewed her for months. She made some tea and read for a while. Her thoughts kept returning to the speed at which her life had slowed down. It sounded odd. It was like looking forward to looking back. Time had almost ground to a halt. The clocks were somehow slower here. Traveling by air required less thought. You'd be in San Diego, have a nap, some bad food, stretch your legs, and you'd be in Europe. On a ship, life is delayed. One experiencing the climate change, the birds disappearing, then a few days later as you near land, they reappear, the rhythm of life. She was introspective, sitting on the back of the ship at day's end. It became a strange meditation, her sacred space. The water changes from green to blue, winds move, they speak to her. Thousands of sailors' voices, lost souls at sea, they whisper to her, "Take us with you, don't go." She answers softly to the coming darkness, "I need a moment to breathe." The ship slid through the icy dark sea, and the night wrapped them in a grim embrace. There were days of mist, gloom, visibility frequently limited. It was an anchor on the clouds. I kept my cameras and gear close. The polar bears were out there, I knew that. The Arctic Ocean was behind us in the Bering Sea, near Wrangel Island, home of the world's highest concentration of polar bears. Just a few hours away, we slipped through the pack ice. The propulsion of the ship murmured and growled into the ocean. I stayed on deck, fast on my feet. I had 2 cameras strapped across me, one in my hands. My thoughts drifted like mist that never seemed to go away. I thought of the polar bears and what I'd read, the intrusion of humans into the Arctic and the oil industry. Increasingly warmer temperatures were causing havoc on the dwindling polar bear population. There were cases where male polar bears practiced cannibalism. They chewed up their mates and disposed of their own offspring. Polar bears could be found swimming in the Arctic Ocean, miles and days away from anything, vicious, solitary, self-serving survivalists. I smiled thinly to myself. I'd met more than a few men that shared those characteristics. At least the polar bears had an excuse for their cruelty. Fuck, awesome. Oh, yes. So this particular trip, the way you were telling me, it was like a reset. It was like a reset because you would think that that you're seeing and experiencing those thoughts and ruminating in such a cold, oppressive place, an isolated place would wear on you. But in fact, it was a reset button for you. Tell us about how that was for you looking at such things and how that happened for you. You don't have to really go into what you want to go into, but how is it that you go through such turmoil in your own life, and then how did it help you?
Yeah, I think, and I always say to you, is that with the surf photography and in the surfing world, it's just like, it's bang, 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 it's fast, it's noisy. You're there at Cloudbreak, you're there at Mavs, you're at Pipe, and it's just like there's so much distractions, there's so much running through you where you're like, okay, well, you're out in the wave shooting or you're on the beach, and there's just a lot of hype, right? And I think, coming to Scorpion Bay, that was just sort of a different kind of surf travel, but for me, I think things changed a lot. And, I was living in San Diego, and I'd, been in the surf industry for some time, and I just, I had an opportunity. I'd lost my mother at the time, and I felt like, and I'd got an agent in New York and was actually working more as a commercial lifestyle photographer between LA and New York, and I don't know, even that was just cutthroat, like I'd be thrown into New York right. And then my portfolio would be thrown out and I wasn't good enough, and it's just like that whole thing about always being on the fringe. Mm-hmm. We always feel Outside. We're not good enough, right? Or there's always someone better, and so I had a friend who's a marine biologist, and she was like, "Oh, Leach, like, have you ever thought about going on like an expedition vessel?" And filming. And I was like, I mean, I don't really film, but I could try. And I ended up getting on a Russian icebreaker, which is the ship you saw earlier. And my first trip was going into Siberia, into the Northeast Passage. And the Northeast Passage is it's not a very forgiving passage.
Doesn't look it.
And I just traveled for months up there. And the thing I really liked about it, and what really I found in my own life, it just slowed me down. And I needed it, and I just needed time to think, time to travel. Where, like you said, Ozzy, like when you're in surf and you're flying from one swell to the next. And the thing I realized when you travel by sea is that you start seeing the changes in the oceans, you start seeing the bird life changing, and everything slows you down as a human. And then when you get to some of these places like Wrangel Island with the polar bears, and these are all sort of an archipelago of islands that sit on the Arctic shelf, above Russia, and you're just nowhere. I mean, these places, it's like solitude, and you just have this patience where you sit and you just wait for life to pass. Whereas sort of with surf, going out and trying to chase the action, and I found sitting with wildlife for months, weeks, days, years, just really kind of grew me as a person, and changed me in so many ways. So
these guys were actually following you, correct?
I hope not.
I don't know, man. To me,
you don't know much about this stuff.
Polar bears are big.
No, this was actually filmed on a drone off the back of a ship. So yeah,
She gave up the secrets.
Yeah, it was actually, but you can kind of tell that. Yeah. But no, I think as well, with surf, we're used to, maybe not so much in England, but we're used to, sun and sand, and this is just another bag. It was so different.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. It certainly seems inhospitable. I mean, and some of there's killer whales, and there's just all kinds of stuff up there. It's really crazy. I appreciate that. That's really good. I love her. So she tells me that she's going to, so you have to understand, I would hear from Lou, and then I wouldn't hear from Lou for a while, and then I'd get this random thing oh, check this out, and it'd be she's at the other end of the planet in some place I'd never even heard of. I'm I can't even pronounce the word of the place she was. So she goes to a place called Yankicha. It's an island. And since you brought up your mother, this particular segment, when we were interviewing her in San Diego maybe a year and a half ago, she had flown in, and we spent a while together going over stuff. Just talking about stuff, and I recorded everything. This particular part was where her mother had passed away, and I'll be frank, she didn't want to deal. She couldn't deal. So it was a turning point, I think, for her. It seemed that way to me, the way she said it. I'm just going to read it and show you. Day became night, and dawn bled across the world again. The rhythm of the ocean kept time floating. I sat and waited, my jacket pulled around me. Soon the rising sun glimmered over the rocks, and things began to take shape. An old volcanic stone spoke a primitive language. The wind picked up, and I smelled the sea, salt air, escape. Are you running again, I asked myself. From what this time? The rocks rose up and marched out of sight. Clouds covered the higher elevations, and I saw shy, furry creatures in the distance. They moved among the rocks by the shoreline. The ocean lifted me up and fell again. I was reminded of life, my mother. She had passed away a year ago, and I never stopped thinking of her. She carried me through everything, a constant in an ever-changing world. She encouraged photography. She tried to understand my love of surfing and the constant compulsion to travel in the search of waves. She didn't surf, but she understood my passion. She'd say a person without passion is someone to pity. Their life is incomplete. My mother was everything, and the void she left was a chasm I almost fell into daily. I choked back emotion and put on my stoic face. I soon found myself on the shoreline, grateful, solid footing. My confidence growing, I wandered around and thought of where I was. So few people would ever reach this place, the last bastion of a primitive age, truly the end of the world. Climbing up, thick grass grew and waves along the higher hillsides and moved in a strange green rhythm. It whispered. It was gorgeous in simplicity. I stood, a lone woman with a camera, at what seemed like the surface of some strange, faraway planet. And on the long, slow walk back, I saw an Arctic fox. It sat and watched me. I sat down too, and it didn't seem afraid. I suppose it didn't need fear. Few human beings had been there. It hadn't been shown the cruelty and destruction so prevalent in my species. The Arctic fox then curled up and fell asleep directly in front of me. we sat there then, him and I, together. When you went there, you were telling me that because you had been on the ship for a while by the time you got there, you were telling me that the isolation was starting to like kind of, it was oppressive. It was like something in the air. You could feel it. But it also became simpler and more peaceful to you. Did you feel like a turning point for you? Like you had, okay, it's time to go and get busy again. Tell us about how you felt.
Yeah, I mean, this is a place which is, I wouldn't even say, I'd say it's really less traveled than Antarctica. I mean, this island it's a caldera, and I think the next shot might example that, and you get there by a vessel, and it's like Jurassic Park, but without loads of dinosaurs, and it's just like really peaceful, and and actually the next shot, there you go. So it's just in the middle of nowhere, and I think this is kind of a crazy moment again, just because I guess where I feel most comfortable, and maybe this is just sort of in life, and I think we've discussed this, is, I think being on the move, makes me feel quite peaceful, I think on an expedition vessel, just kind of traveling through, I can sit with myself a lot better than trying to sit with myself at home in a sort of a still position. And I think I had spent a lot of time, through Siberia alone, but it gave me a chance to, to breathe and to slow down. And with Newquay Island, I think it was the first bit of life I'd seen for a while. The Arctic was so solemn and grey, and all the ice and the cold, and then this magical place just appeared. And the interesting part of my experience here was, sort of stepping off the rib, to get into the caldera, and just walking with my camera completely alone. I mean, it was just like, I felt like the first person to ever stand there. And as a wildlife photographer and someone that had, gone from surfer types to furried animals, I just ended up walking the shore, and there's this Arctic fox, and I love Arctic fox. I mean, they're such a great animal. This is one with a summer coat. And I just started, sort of following it. And most of the time with wildlife shooting, I mean, if you're shooting bears in Alaska, okay, they're working with the salmon and they don't really care you're there. If you were with bears in Siberia, they were hunted for so long, so it's going to be hard to get a shot. But the difference here was, I was trying to shoot the fox, and then it just turned around, and then it came towards me, and I was with my 300, so it was quite a zoom lens, but it just kind of came up to me and then just curled up in my arm and just fell asleep. And this was a wild animal, and I think that was quite a big turning point, because I realized that, as humans, we've just, I don't know, we've
buggered it up.
We've buggered it up. We've done so much.
It up.
And there's some place where no humans go. I'm there, can't take a photo because the animal is just like curled up. A wild animal is curled up in my arms, and whilst that might seem quite simplistic in some ways, I think the bigger picture is...
to me, sounds brilliant.
Yeah, the bigger picture is it just shows how, if we don't destroy things and we look after things and we protect things and we love, and, love is everything. Love is something that we should give to everyone and everything. Everyone's deserving of it, that, it nourishes, it grows. And I think, that's what I was probably missing a lot in the surf industry. I spent, 2 decades as a female surf photographer battling out, I guess, a position in that industry where I was never really, fully accepted sometimes. And, places like the boat and, not being allowed on things, and it didn't really matter what I did. I mean, there would still be, I should be on the beach in a bikini, right? But
of course not.
I never really followed that path.
Who wears a bikini at the beach?
You probably would. But, saying that, there was also some amazing people and some amazing guys that, Scott Ackner, Zach Knoll, Roger Sharp, working with Louise Searle and Steve England from Carbon Surf Club that, started my career and believed in that. And, that really sort of took me through globally doing that. But coming back to this and coming into our natural world, and probably most of you are here because we want to talk about surf, so we'll leave some time to talk more about that. But I think a message here is, I don't know how many people in the audience are surf photographers or are into surf photography. I'm assuming quite a few if you're here to listen to me.
You take photos, right? We have a couple of minutes for questions. So I just want to say thank you for all that she's given us some photos and video, right? Come. Brilliant.
I always tell him not to get so excited.
A couple minutes for questions. You have time?
Well, that's what I was going on to.
Please.
Yeah.
You're amazing. What are you talking about?
But yeah, I don't know. I think it would be nice. I mean, thank you to Ozzy too. I think it's a quick 40 minutes, so we don't have too much time. But I think what's really important here is Ozzy's an amazing writer, and he's writing a book that we're doing together. And the book for me, and I hope it reaches you too one day, is about a journey. And I think we look at each other's lives and we look at what we do, surf photography, nature, and it's about giving that knowledge. I think that's what we're here for. And if we can't pass it on and we can't pass our story on, then what are we doing? Yeah. So I don't know if there's any questions, or we can delve into a few more things that might be more specific to why anyone's here today. We kind of briefly went through Russia to Fox to
we did the best we could.
To whatever. But does anyone have any?
Anybody have any comments or questions?
If not, I'll just talk for another 5 minutes, or even worse, he'll talk. So
I won't talk anymore.
All right, who's a friend that will just ask me a question then?
Yeah.
Go on.
Go ahead, young lady.
Hi, Lucia.
Hi.
I just wondered if you had any other cute, fluffy animal encounters apart from the Arctic fox.
Do I have a what?
Like cute, fluffy animal encounters, or special, magic encounters through your photography.
I didn't hear it. I couldn't.
I can't hear it.
Animal photography, like any nice encounters.
Oh, anything? Any crazy thing happened with animal photography? Oh God, yeah. Bears.
What bear?
You with the grizzly bears, weren't you in with the grizzly bears, and you were?
Oh yeah, I had a bear charging me once. That was quite cool.
Let me forget that happened. A grizzly bear's chasing her. She forgot.
I was working Katmai, and we went to a place, into Katmai. Katmai is an area up in Alaska where, during a certain season, it's quite easy just to stroll about, obviously with rangers and, protection, when the salmon are running, so in August or July. So you can pretty much, as a photographer, and I think maybe on the video you might have seen a couple of clips, walk, actually you can wear waders, which I do like a good pair of waders, and go through the river and just, shoot the bears as they're strolling past. And then these are big bears. Anyway, you go through a little bit of bear camp, or you have the rangers and the, experienced people saying, okay, this is what you do if a bear charges, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. And I mean, clearly, I think most people know, when a bear charges, you don't run, so you stand still, you make yourself look big. I don't know, if you've got a 400 lens, it's quite good. I feel semi-protected. And so we were going along. We have to be careful because sometimes they might be in the bush or the thick forest. And so I was in the river, and one thing they say is don't come between a mother and a cub. That is a biggest no-no. And if you do, the mother's going to become super protective and charge you. So if that happens, to stand still, and then the ranger will come in. Anyway, so it happened, which I felt really bad about. I didn't really mean to do it, but things happen. And so the mother charged me, and I basically ended up face planting the mud bank of the river. So I didn't realize, but the river sort of finished behind me as a tall, just mud bank. So I couldn't have gone anywhere. It was just a wall of mud. And I just basically ran because I just didn't not listen. But then as I turned around, I just sort of angeled into the bank. And then the filmmaker Ross, who was with me, was just everyone else was just standing still, and we were just what just happened? And it was just so embarrassing. And actually, the mother didn't even, it charged me, but luckily the rangers kind of intervened, but I was just covered in mud and just looked like an absolute idiot. And then got told off, and then wasn't allowed back out.
I think if a grizzly bear came in the door over there, I'd run. I'd just be hell with that.
But generally, it's pretty safe. I think working with wildlife, and I don't know if there's anyone here that actually is interested in the natural world or, wants to be a wildlife photographer. Anyone? Yeah. I don't know, what kind of things do you shoot? Are you into Arctic or Antarctica or underwater?
That was very difficult to answer.
Yeah.
I spent 10 years on the yacht.
Mm.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, whoops. I worked on a boat for 10 years, around French Polynesia, etc., absolutely everywhere. So most of our crew were surfers, and we'd sit on the shoulder of Cloudbreak. So been there, Chopu, everything, like trying to just not get completely pounded in the boats, but very experienced boat drivers and the locals, etc. So I did spend some time doing that, but I'm not professional.
Ah,
I just was kind of like allocated to do that. So
yeah.
everything you've said has been like really inspiring.
Cool.
Well, thank you all for. Thank you.
Yeah, go
You
on.
want to finish anything?
No, after you. No, well, no, it's fine. No, I can talk. You've talked. That's fine. We've got a few minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gentlemen. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I'm glad you brought it up. And a lot of the time in like the talks that I do, especially with Canon, like I do a lot of conservation talks and, you know, bringing the areas of my expertise, which is in Antarctica or the Arctic or Russia, Galapagos, like, you know, very fragile ecosystems. And I think the one thing that I've always said to myself, especially being fortunate enough to be able to access these places, because the thing is, you can't just access them. I mean, to get to Antarctica, you know, it's a mission. To get to some of these places, I mean, there's not many people that have been there. So I take it very seriously, and I think for me as a photographer and for my journey, it's the giving back bit, and I think it's that bridging gap between, you know, how do we change as humans? How do we eventually kind of become more conscious? You know, all the little things, and it doesn't have to be anything grand. You know, we don't all have to, you know, stop eating meat, or we don't all have to stop traveling by our cars or flying in airplanes. I mean, you know, it's not sustainable. It's you know, the little things you can do, and I think from a photographer or film director point of view, being able to gather this footage and these images it's my responsibility to bring that back and to show that and to expose that to other people that do not have the privilege to be at these places. And I think when we understand something, when we truly understand something and we can connect to it, that's when we can have more awareness, more open-mindedness. And I think until then, I wouldn't expect anyone to be like, well, okay, how, you know, the sea ice is melting. How are the polar bears? You know, I'm going to, you know, start recycling more or do these things when you've got no idea what it's like up on the sea ice and you can't relate to that. And I think if we can't relate to something, we're not going to be able to do something. I think it's hard. And I think, you know, being up in the Arctic and seeing the state of our world, and it's not all doom and gloom. You know, I think as a wildlife photographer and someone that has seen things change, like I've been to Antarctica for 5 years in a row or Alaska and seen the glaciers melt, you know, we aren't going to have some of the glaciers because they have receded enough. But going back to one sort of example, with the polar bears, they hunt on sea ice. So they rely on the sea ice, which should be there, to be able to hunt, you know, seals. What we're seeing now, and what I've seen over sort of a 7 to 8 year period of visiting there and spending time, is that they've come into the towns. You know, they're coming onto land. And I have a couple of photographs, you know, because they're trying to find food, right? They're not being able to see it. Their home is going, and I think it's quite sad when you see it. Same as the penguins in Atka Bay. You know, it's the survival of the fittest. You know, the parents go out, they go fishing, come back, and you have all these penguin chicks. If their parents don't come back, you know, they're gone, they die. They just sit there, beautiful little things, and gone. And you know, as humans, we can't intervene. But the point being is, there's a photo I have of a polar bear, and maybe from a photographer point of view, and maybe sort of something I can share if, you know, any of yourselves do go out there, is don't always just focus on, you know, something which looks pretty. It doesn't have to be gruesome either, but, you know, putting the image I'm thinking about is the polar bear really small and in this huge landscape of rock and sort of, really thin, trying to find food. And, it's just about showcasing environment as well and mixing those shots up. And, photography, filmmaking, it's storytelling. It's telling a story within one photo or in a series of images. So yeah, back to your question, I think it's my responsibility to do that. And that's
Create awareness.
Yeah, what did you say?
Creating awareness.
Creating awareness.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think we're pretty much out of time.
Thank you
aren't we?
for listening
Yeah.
to us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done.